Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Franchise Frontier podcast. I'm Dave Kimura, the host, and today I am happy to be joined by Brad McGowan with Blingle Premier Lighting of Plano, Texas. Brad has been a franchisee for a few years now and looking to get some great insight and some, rebuttal and back and forth when it comes to Blingle Premier Lighting. So, Brad, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
So, Brad, as we get into it, usually how this goes is, we talk about really what your why is. When you first thought about possibly getting into the franchise business and or purchasing a franchise, help us understand kind of what you and your family went through, what you looked at, what are the things you went through, and to get to the point you are now.
Yeah, so we had a couple of pretty big whys. We had owned a business, a couple of businesses for several years. We sold our largest business, which was an insurance brokerage, in 2018, and worked for that company, the buyer, for 4 years. And just really, 4 years was enough of working for somebody else, and so we left that business in February of 2022, and about a month into our very short-lived retirement, I was contacted by a franchise broker, who really opened my eyes to all of the things that are available through franchising. I had no idea. I think, like many people, we think all the big fast food restaurants and things like that. I had no idea that a third of the U.S. economy is franchised, and especially the home services area is very big in franchising. I just didn't know. And so we looked at that. I had always had a dream of having a family business where my wife and I and any of our three sons could be a part of it. And that just started to really open up that opportunity. So that's kind of our first big why, was just a desire to be able to build something that I could pass on to my kids. We have three adult sons who are now, I think, 30, 20, almost 27 and 26 or 24, something. I don't know. And that timeline of looking at businesses corresponded exactly to when our youngest son was graduating from college, and he was looking for his first job. He had two offers on the table that I had to compete against, by the way, which I will forever tease him about, that I had to compete against other people to hire my own son, which says a lot about him, and just how attractive he was. But so that why of building a family business was really important to us. And then if you kind of look at think about the insurance industry and what we were doing prior to doing this, we were small health insurance brokers, or brokers in the small health insurance space. And so we would go into employers with 100 or fewer employees and talk to them about health insurance. And oftentimes I would walk into offices of business owners that I had worked with for years, for 20 years, and they would say something like, "Oh, Brad, I hate it when you come to my office," because I was delivering bad news. Insurance premiums were going up, benefits were going down. These were products that employees increasingly didn't appreciate, and that's what my whole life was built on, was trying to make that message palatable to employers and employees alike. And when we started evaluating the different businesses out there, and we saw Blingle, an outdoor lighting company, the immediate thought was, wait a minute, you mean that we can go to somebody's house and do our job great and they're going to be happy about it? That's amazing. And so that was another big thing that really attracted us to Blingle specifically, is just the ability to make such an impact on somebody's life, somebody's house, somebody's property, and actually have them be happy with what we did when we left. So those are just a couple of things.
Yeah, I mean that actually rolls right into what my next question was. Is again, as you talk to a franchise broker, obviously as you learn more about the systems of franchising in general, I would imagine there is a plethora of different types of businesses. So I was going to ask you a little bit about, what helped you or what pushed you in a direction of either home service, a particular brand, or a particular system.
Yeah. Yeah, we looked at several home services. I think for us, one of the things that we like is we do like to be outside, and so we wanted a business that was mostly focused on being outdoors. We live in Dallas, so even though it gets hot year round, we're kind of always outside. And so something like that in our area really made a lot of sense. And like I said, I think the other thing was this is something that and there'll be a trade off here, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is Blingle or outdoor lighting is something that people really enjoy. It's not an emergency type of service. It is not a oh no something went wrong type of service. It is not something that is a necessary evil in a house. And all of those are wonderful, and all of those make for great businesses. It just wasn't for us. And so when we were looking at the opportunities that were available, sort of across the spectrum of home services, lighting just really stood out. And again, the idea that uh, my wife Shannon, who's owner and handles more of the operations in our business, um, she loves to see the finished product of her work. And again, going back to the insurance industry, it was all intangible stuff. It's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of stuff. And yes, there are times when people are incredibly grateful for us and for our service in that insurance world. Um, but it doesn't get voiced very often. And I can tell you at the end of every single job that we do with Blingle, that we complete, those homeowners are happy. And that's such a huge thing for us.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. The ability to put a smile on somebody's face by doing your job
Yep,
is always a great thing.
indeed.
Um, what are you? You're in year 3 now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we opened August 1st of 2022. So we are into year three. August of this year will be full year three.
Awesome. So if you can remember back, right, and you talk about your first year as a
Yeah.
business owner, what were your what were your biggest surprises?
Yeah. Um, I think we were surprised by and I don't know why we were surprised by this, but because as a homeowner, I didn't think about lighting very much, and so we were pretty surprised by how little people think about the outdoor lighting on and around their home or their property, and that brings about a unique set of challenges that you have to go through. Um, I think the other thing that we were surprised by, and this was a good surprise, was that the intricacies of actually installing outdoor lighting is they're not that difficult. There's a ton of detail behind the scenes that you have to know. Um, but the actual installation is not all that difficult, and that surprised us a little bit. We thought it was going to be much harder to do that than it was. Having said that, the surprise on the back end is there is a decent amount of detail that you have to understand about things like voltage drop and appropriate ways to install different lights to get different effects. So those are really fun things to learn. And so those were just some of the surprises that we faced early on.
Did you feel like with those surprises, there was really anything that was a overwhelming challenge, or do you feel as if there were a few things that maybe were a bigger challenge than you thought, and there's some other things that you were able to work through just from installing more jobs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you definitely learn. I'll never forget the first holiday light install that we did on a house. it took us forever to do it, way too long. And after 3 holiday seasons, I think it took us, Dave, a day and a half to install this nothing of a job. And today that install would be 45 minutes for our guys. So just the things that we have learned about efficiency, about speed, the right way to do things, developing systems during an install to help you get through it, and actually preparing for the install ahead of time. All of those things were challenges and surprises. Obviously, if you've never been in that business, you just don't think about them. But we've been able to create a lot of efficiencies around systems and prep that help us out so much. And it's nice to look back at that and kind of laugh and say, wow, what took us a day and a half in year one, day one, takes us now 45 minutes to install. And it's just an amazing.
I believe, I was around for a lot of that as well. And I think that the difficult part of anything, and I would imagine it's difficult for like this in most franchises that probably get outside of a brick and mortar, is those SOPs are different in Plano than they are in Raleigh,
Yeah, no
or
doubt.
they're different in, whatever that might be. But I think there's a lot to be said about that, about having, a strong team. I know your sons work with you and your wife, and I think there's a lot of value behind that, because now you've developed those processes as a team.
Yep.
Throughout those 3 years. So it's like when you talk about prepping for a job, this person does this person does that,
Yep.
this person does this. And it's very, I think that when you start to look at installing lighting, to your point, it is simpler than it seems, but at the same time, you can definitely cut down in the hassle by prepping and knowing what to prep
Exactly.
about, right? Knowing what to prep. And I think that's the thing, when you talk about different types of the country, you might never be prepping to have to put in a landscape light and use a post hole digger or whatever, where somebody in Florida might just be like, oh, well, we can dig the ground really easy.
Right.
Whatever that might be. You never know. Minnesota, it might be frozen, something to that extent. But there's so many intricacies of that. And I think that being in the business, and I believe being in franchising, there's a huge portion of that it's important to know that things are going to continue to get better.
Yeah.
Things are going to get better as you become, because again, when you talk about insurance broker, like you were, an insurance broker turned lighting person, unless there's some button that you were supposed to plug into and tap ourselves on the head to download all the information.
Yeah.
And if you went in the reverse,
yeah.
Right. And a lighting professional who decided to open an insurance brokerage on day one, there's so many tips and tricks that you just know that work for you versus, they're not something that anybody could do, but they worked for you in that space.
Sure.
And so you're able to do that. And I think that every one of these franchise businesses in the home service area, there is the playbook of the how to, but I think that a lot of that playbook, the words get changed, the way what paragraph goes where gets changed a lot in the franchise business. And that helps provide more success for franchisees.
Yeah, no doubt.
So when you look at your day-to-day operations, I know your wife does a lot of this, a typical day in the life as a business owner, what parts of the job do you find the most rewarding, and what kind of keeps you on your toes?
Yeah, definitely. Working with our 2 sons. So our story is we hired our youngest right away. Like I said, I had to compete with 2 other employers to get him. He's a phenomenal lighting designer / salesperson, and we had hired an initial lead tech or lead installer while our middle son was in the Army. And when he got out of the Army in February of 23, we immediately brought him on as our lead installer. And so the joy of getting to work with my kids, knowing that we're building something that they will eventually take over and run, is immeasurable. I can't really put any kind of a value on it, or a high enough value on that. So, a day in our life really is uh, coming in and looking at the jobs that we have for installations that day, which have already been prepped for the day prior or a couple of days prior. Hitting the ground running is incredibly important and rewarding. And I think one of the things that we have discovered, and this is common sense, and you hear about it a lot in business circles, but it's empowering your employees to be able to take on the roles that they need to take to perfect the areas that they're responsible for. And I think as a business owner, the sooner that you can switch making from feeling like you have to have your hands on every aspect of the business to empowering your employees. They obviously have to be people that you trust, but empowering your employees to really take over that day-to-day stuff, especially in the prep areas and in the actual installation areas. The sooner that you can hand that off, the better it is for you as an owner. And so when we get in the morning and open up the shop, our guys are there. They're already, if something hasn't been fully prepped, they're prepping it, and oftentimes they have things loaded onto the vans and they're ready to go when we get there. And then really the rest of our day as owner operators is just spent um, handling behind the scenes stuff, talking about marketing, looking at sales opportunities, thinking about networking, and all of those. And then obviously you're always going to have the call from an installer saying, I forgot, or we don't have enough, or whatever. And then you make an emergency run and go out, go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get what you need, or go wherever you need to get whatever you need and get it to them. So,
Yeah, to your point, I would imagine the operation and the parts that you were talking about empowering your employees. I would imagine there's a little bit of a different mindset for you guys as well, being family,
yeah,
right? The trust issue obviously is really high. We don't have to worry about that.
very.
But at the same time, even though your sons are grown up and they're out of the office, out of the house or whatever that might be, you're still mom and dad, and they still look at mom and dad to give direction, give me some direction.
Sure.
Even though they want that direction, they still look at mom and dad to say, that's fine, go ahead. Yeah, you know what you're doing. So I think that there's probably a little bit of a battle in that in the beginning. But then at the same time, I could not agree with you more, the value of empowering your employees to do what you've hired them to do.
Yes.
I think that that also helps build the business and those SOPs, because it goes back to the days of me coaching. There's the way that I did it, and there might be the way that you did it. And the way that you did it is not incorrect.
Right.
And you might be way more efficient doing it your way, as long as the job gets done correctly. And we
Yep.
can all agree that it looks great and it's done correctly. Whether it's the way whether I tie my right shoe and then my left shoe, or my left shoe, then my right shoe, it really doesn't matter as long as the job gets done. But
That's right.
you'll never know that unless you allow people to A, make mistakes and correct them,
Right.
or B, allow them to take ownership of it and feel good about the project as it gets completed themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that the family dynamic that we have, you hear a lot of family businesses that go great, and you hear some family businesses that have issues. I don't. I mean, we're blessed to be working with our family, but I don't think it matters if it's family or not. I think the important thing that owners again need to understand very quickly is that if you're hiring the right people, if you have done your due diligence on making sure that those people are have high integrity, high quality expectations, and are trustworthy, then as soon as possible, empower them to do what you've hired them to do. And that's probably where a lot of owners in any business get stuck, is that they believe that they have the right way and the only way that something can get done. And man, I can tell you that if if my kids ran the business, the day-to-day activities, whether it's sales or installations, based on the way that I thought it should be done, we would never get anywhere. And they just they have so much better experience now in the business, being 2-3 years in, and they just have better ideas. And so I want to empower them as much as possible to get that stuff done.
That's incredible. And I would assure you that that's probably the leads to the success of your business. And to your point of people that say that some of their family businesses fail,
Yeah.
that might be the reason some of those things fail, right? They don't let those employees / family members kind of grow into into what they can be.
Right.
To your next point about having better ideas. And I don't know if they're better. They're just different,
Yeah,
right?
right.
They're just different. Like the world is advancing. When you talk about the home service business, for example, and you talk about, for years there has been really great people that are in the home service business doing a fantastic job.
Yep.
Joe's Roofing or Tim's Fence Company, they do a fantastic job. They've always done a fantastic job. But gone are the days of, if you're able to call your business A1 Lighting, that you're the first one on the page of the yellow pages.
Yeah,
gone are those days.
Yeah, those are gone.
And now you get into a situation now, and I think that this is a test to you guys and your family, and it's almost good how your sons are a little bit staggered in age, where now the sales and technology and the social media aspect and those type of things are, and AI is taking off.
Yeah.
And so to that point, it's not about, when if I'm looking for an outdoor lighting solution, I don't just get to go to the yellow pages and look anymore.
Right.
Now I'm going to go to Google and I'm
Yep.
going to look at it.
Yep.
And if you might be the best company, but if you're 10th on the page,
Yep.
you might never get seen.
That's
so
right.
when you think about those type of things that have changed, right? When you talk about the aspect of word of mouth, those type of things, doing a great job, what parts of the marketing structure now and the way you see the technology and stuff going, do you think are the most beneficial for you guys to continue to drive your business?
Yeah. So let me say a couple of things about that, Dave. Number one is we're blessed to be in a very visual business. The lighting business it translates very well to digital marketing, and so the importance of search engine optimization, making sure that your Google business profile is ranking high. All of that stuff is incredibly important. And what I would say, I think a lot of business owners face this, and this is where I think we are blessed to be a part of Horsepower Brands, because they bring so much expertise to the table. The access that we have to expert digital marketers and SEO managers, I don't know where I would have gone to try to find that stuff. And I mean, there's a whole slew of things that our franchisor brings to us, and that I don't know where I would have gone to find those relationships. But specifically in that marketing area, we are incredibly grateful for the professional teams that we have access to through Horsepower. And so, yeah, we really take advantage of those relationships. And because my kids are just more in tune with that, it makes it a lot easier for us to make decisions quickly on what areas of the digital world we want to engage. And it also is interesting. And one of the things I was going to bring up is, I think one of the challenges that a lot of early business owners face is they don't know where to spend their money on advertising, regardless of whether it's print media, digital media, door hangers, phone calls, whatever. And I would say that for us, what we have found the most success in is being very heavy on digital media, just again, because our brand, Blingle Outdoor Lighting, lends itself to a visual presentation. But being very heavy on digital media, and then being very heavy on networking and referrals, Those are the two areas that we have found the most success in. So I think capitalizing on those experts that Horsepower Brands has made available to us has been critical to our success.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that there's probably a ton of parts of the industry in any franchise where if you've been a successful business owner, business operator, employee, whatever that is, you feel as if you have a good understanding of how that other aspect of the business runs, right? When you think about marketing, and obviously that's always a big one, but when you think about marketing, you probably think about only one sliver of the pie in terms of really what it comes down to about all the things that get involved. And then to your point, when if somebody were to try to start their own business outside the franchise system, there's pieces of that pie when you decide to ramp up your marketing that you have no idea how much of a capital investment that is going to end up being. So, touche to you for understanding that and kind of seeing the benefit in that. So, when you think about the lessons that you've gone through, right? When we talk about installing any part of the business, what's one lesson or mistake from an experience that you have that you think about every day, and every new business owner or possibly a franchise, someone who gets in the franchise system, what's a mistake that maybe let's just call it a speed bump that you went through and you said, oh, if I were ever to tell somebody else this, this is the one thing that I think that everybody should know before they decide to purchase a franchise and be a business owner?
Yeah, I think there are some mistakes that are made pre-decision of opening a business, and then I think there's a key. I won't call it a mistake. It's just something that's not acted on quick enough when you're actually in the business. And so the first thing that I would say is when you're getting to the point of making a decision to open your own business, especially in a franchise model, we found that it is best to go in with the attitude that while your franchisor is there to help you and provide amazing relationships with outside vendors, training, all sorts of ideas, that the sole responsibility to make your business succeed is on your shoulders. And if you don't go into it with that, if you go into it thinking that somebody else, whether it's your franchisor, your field coach, or whoever, is going to be responsible for your business's success, that's a mistake. And so we were fortunate that we never had that, but we know some other business owners that kind of went into it with that idea that, well, my franchisor is going to provide all of my leads for me, and they're going to do everything that's necessary for us to be able to call as many people as we need to call and get in front of as many people as we need to get in front of to sell however much we need to sell. And that's not true. That is not what your franchisor is there to do. They are there to give you sort of the framework of how to do that, but the actual doing that is our responsibility, my responsibility as a business owner. And so I think putting that on your back and carrying that through just gives you the understanding that my business is going to succeed off of my effort and the effort of my team. And so I think that is one mistake that business owners go into it not understanding, especially in the franchise model. And then while you're in the business, I would say one mistake that is made very often is not identifying your ideal client quickly. Because what it leads to is a lot of time chasing clients that are not ideal. And this is hard. It's really hard when you first start out a business because you want every piece of business that can come in. Whether it's I don't know, hanging some bistro lights for a couple $100 or doing a $500 holiday job or something like that. And the issue is, especially in the holiday space, is that we do a really good job of retaining clients. We retain about 90% of our clients every year. And those $500 jobs that we sold year one are still with us, and those are not ideal jobs for us, at least. On the landscape lighting side, it has been critical for us to identify our ideal customer in the residential landscape space and landscape lighting space. And so the quicker that you can do that, the quicker you are focusing on and marketing to the people that will make your business grow. And so I think that that's just an essential thing for new business owners to figure out who that ideal client is, whatever your space, whatever your industry or market, figure out who that ideal client is as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I would imagine that sometimes when you think about the concept of franchising, if you're new to the space, to your point, I think about the McDonald's of the world, the Chick-fil-A's of the world, where you're right. Every aspect of that business is basically laid out and mapped out for you. You just have to show up and run the business.
Yep.
People come through the drive-through, we'll call it. The home service business, I would agree with you 1,000%, is a little bit different. And the home service space for a franchisee and a franchisor is different because you hear people talk all the time that you're an independently owned and operated business owner. And I think there's probably not enough emphasis put on that to say, this is your business. This will run on your blood, sweat, and tears. And the franchisor is there to provide insights, game plan, marketing strategy, high level things that's what you're investing in. You're investing in those relationships. But at the end of the day, they're not going to sell the lighting for you, right? That's going to be part of your business.
Yeah. There's no way that an individual franchisee can be successful if the franchisor is doing the work. Why would a franchisor even franchise their business if they're going to go out and do all the work? That just doesn't make sense.
And then the last part, this is a little bit of a selfish ask, right? When you talk about landscape lighting, right? I'm just interested to know kind of how your thought process has matriculated on that. I know from being in the space as well that there's literally nothing better than when you see a completed project.
Yeah.
And the most difficult part is showing somebody what their house will be, or getting them the ability to see that in their mind previous to the project. Yep. I know that Blingle has some design aspects and tools, but I also know that some, photographs and those type of things, or maybe a demo job kind of helps that out.
Yep.
What have you guys found in the landscape? Because when I think about Blingle, I think specifically that Blingle is a landscape permanent lighting company that does amazing things and also does holiday lighting. It's all wrapped into one. So what are some things that you guys have found that when you've decided in that landscape realm or even the permanent realm, this is the way that I take one of those clients that has an incredible house, but really doesn't know a ton about lighting. And I really amplify my sales process and say, here, let me show you and provide you a visual of what I'm talking about. And how is that, in the second part of that is, how has that helped you in the sales process as you've grown your jobs?
Yeah, so we have a couple of tools that are available to us, whether they're through different vendors or just software programs that that Horsepower Brands provides us, or that is a part of our package. It really helps. So one of the things that we have is the ability to take a picture of the home or the area that we're decorating, put it into the computer, and then put different types of lights through a software program there, and then turn it into night, and you can see the effects of the lights on those areas, and that is very helpful for our salespeople when they're presenting ideas to homeowners. There's probably nothing better than doing a demo, and we did one just 2 nights ago, and it was phenomenal. It was an interesting conversation between our lighting designer and the homeowner. The homeowner that he met with was, and this is a whole nother thing about both decision makers weren't there at the same time. That's really important to try to stress when you're qualifying a lead and getting in, setting the appointment, is try to get both decision makers there. He didn't have that, and the one decision maker that he met with loved the idea, could see the vision through the software, but was trying to think about, how am I going to explain this to the other decision maker? And so our Reed, our lighting designer, said, well, let me come out and do a demo. That way you don't have to explain it and they can just see it. And so, the next night he was out there and set up a demo and sold the job. And it was just a great idea that, hey, these software things are incredible for presenting what you can present, and we're very grateful to have those at our fingertips. But also, just an old-fashioned demo worked really well. And so the point is that I think you have to have all of those tools available to you and know when to bring which ones out. We still at times will just scribble on a pad of paper and start marking dots where lights are going to be. And when somebody says, oh, that's too expensive, then you just show them the sheet and you say, okay, which lights do you want to remove? And they say, well, none of them. And you're like, well, then, this is your option. This is the package that we have available. And it's going to be the best for your house. Do you want to do it in phases? And, oh, yes, that's a great idea. And so now you have a client that you're going to be working on for, many months to come. And it's just it's a great way to be able to secure future business. But it all starts with those initial tools and having those conversations. So the technology side of things has been fantastic for us.
Yeah, and we both know that sometimes when it comes to a demo, or even the first time you install and turn it on before you bury the lights, a 6 light project can quickly turn into a 16 light project when somebody goes outside and they go, you know what, we should put one here and one there and
That's
one
right.
here.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great insight into a little bit of what maybe what somebody would call an old school method with a new school method. You're able to then
Absolutely.
and again, to your point, there's really nothing better than seeing the lights on in the evening. Or again, someone has driven up to their house for 25 years,
Yes.
15 years, 5 years,
Yep.
doesn't matter. They know exactly what it looks like every time they drive up, except for that night.
Yeah, that's right.
The night they drive up and stand out there and you hit that button,
Yeah.
and the way their face lights up and the way things that you can do, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So hats off to you guys for that.
Thank you.
So when you think about your long-term vision,
Yeah.
right? What's next for you? Do you see yourself, you guys, I know you guys have scaled a little bit in territory. Do you see yourself scaling more on territories, focusing on your current operations?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to scale much more here, at least for the short term. And so what we are really focused on is, first of all, the Dallas area is an amazing market that we're in, and we have so many neighborhoods that that make up or that have our ideal clients in them, that we really want to focus on that neighborhood penetration and getting to as many of those homeowners as we can. And I think the other thing that lends itself to, Dave, is, and this goes back to the thing that we were talking about as far as fast food restaurants and all of that. I tell future franchisees this all the time, that one of the challenges that we have in the lighting business specifically is when I think about eating food, and I love to eat food, and I eat out too often, and there are 5 or 6 restaurants that I have that are always on my list, and so probably 5 or 6 times a week I think of all of those places. They're in my head. My customers very rarely think about outdoor lighting, let alone Blingle. And so one of the challenges that we have is that when they do happen to think about outdoor lighting, that 1 or 2 times a year, I have to be front and center. I have to be in front of them, making sure that Blingle is the name that they think about. And so, back to the marketing idea, we have to be digitally in front of them all the time. We have to make sure that the experts that we're using in that digital world have fine-tuned our retargeting methods to be able to get in front of those people. And I have to be in those neighborhoods installing current jobs if I want those other neighbors to think of us. And whether it's a sign or a door hanger or our wrapped vehicles that we have out there, I have to do everything that I can to make sure that our name is front and center for them when they do happen to think about landscape lighting. And so I think that's the purpose that I really want to focus on these existing neighborhoods and our existing territory that we have, rather than expanding further. I think focusing on our ideal client more and more and doing everything that we can to get in front of them is really what we want to focus on over the next probably 24 or 36 months.
Yeah, your ability to be, like you said, top of mind, it's going to come down to, like you said, your marketing plan for that.
Yep.
And then it's going to come down to some of the basic stuff, right? How do I make sure that I'm part of those Facebook pages and those
Yep.
community groups and those type of things? And then you guys just continue to do a great job. And at some time, as they're driving through their neighborhood, every time people drive through the neighborhood, it's about winning the neighborhood.
That's
so
right.
I look forward to you guys continuing the beautification of the Plano area. So when I get down there, I can make sure I know where I'm going.
That's great.
Congratulations on your guys' success.
Thanks,
and the
Dave.
family business. And we appreciate you being on the podcast. And I look forward to chatting with you more about this in the future.
You bet. That sounds great. Thanks, man.
Thank you.